Connecticut Sun star Alyssa Thomas delivered a powerful message on Wednesday night, speaking out against the racial abuse she and her teammates have endured on social media during their WNBA playoff series against the Indiana Fever. After leading her team to a series-clinching 87-81 victory over the Fever, Thomas, typically known for her calm demeanor on the court, took the opportunity to address the unacceptable behavior that she had been witnessing online. In the post-game press conference, Thomas shared that she had never experienced the type of racial comments she was seeing from the Fever's fan base. "I've never been called the things that I've been called on social media, and there's no place for it," she said, visibly frustrated by the vitriol that had been directed at her and her teammates. "It's uncalled for and something needs to be done, whether it's them checking their fans or this league checking. There's no time for it anymore." Her comments came after days of increased tension surrounding the series, much of it sparked by a play in Game 1. Where Sun guard DiJonai Carrington inadvertently poked Fever star Clark in the face while making a play for the ball, leaving Clark with a black eye. Though both players, Carrington and Clark, clarified that the contact was accidental, the incident seemed to fuel a torrent of hateful and racially charged comments online, specifically targeting Carrington and other players on the Connecticut Sun. Ahead of Wednesday's game, Carrington shared on her Instagram stories a screenshot of one of the shockingly racist messages she had received, shining a light on the kind of abuse the players were facing. Despite the players' clarifications that there was no ill intent behind the play, online trolls used the incident as an opportunity to spew hate. The racist remarks made it clear that the hostility was not just about basketball. During the press conference, Carrington sat beside Thomas, nodding in agreement as her teammate passionately spoke about the need for change. "Basketball is headed in a great direction, but we don't want fans that are going to degrade us and call us racial names," Thomas continued. "I mean, we already see what's happening in the world and what we have to deal with in that aspect. And we come to play basketball for our job and it's fun, but we don't want to go to work every day and have social media blown up over things like that." Shortly after Thomas's comments, the WNBA released an official statement condemning the racist and derogatory remarks that had been made. "The WNBA is a competitive league with some of the most elite athletes in the world," the statement read. "While we welcome a growing fan base, the WNBA will not tolerate racist, derogatory, or threatening comments made about players, teams, and anyone affiliated with the league. League security is actively monitoring threat-related activity and will work directly with teams and arenas to take appropriate measures, to include involving law enforcement as necessary." The league's statement reflected its commitment to protecting its players, but it also raised questions about the broader issue of racism in sports and the responsibility of leagues, teams, and fans to address it. In recent years, professional athletes, particularly in women's sports, have increasingly used their platforms to call out not only racism but other forms of abuse, from sexism to homophobia. For Thomas, Carrington, and their teammates, it's about creating a space where they can compete at the highest level without being subjected to personal attacks. Connecticut Sun coach Stephanie White, a former WNBA player herself, strongly supported her players during her own media session. After being informed of Thomas's comments, White expressed frustration with how social media trolls have been able to hijack the conversation. "I feel like we have allowed trolls in social media to frame the narrative of what the story is. And it's unacceptable," White said. "We have to do a better job." White, who has long been an advocate for the players' rights and well-being, called for more accountability from fans and the league itself. "I just encourage everybody to take a step back and think about if it's your sons or your daughters or your nieces or your nephews or your children, for goodness sake, because if my children were being harassed like this, I'm not sure what I would do," she continued. "And I'm not talking about criticism that comes with the territory. That is what it is. That's part of it. But the narrative doesn't need to be controlled by people who are just on their keyboards spewing hate and negative vitriol everywhere." Indiana Fever coach Christy Sides also weighed in on the situation, addressing the challenges her players faced both on and off the court. While she acknowledged the fierce competition, Sides emphasized that there's no place for the type of hate that had been directed at the players. "There's a lot of hurtful, hateful speech out there that's happening, and it's unacceptable," Sides said. "There's no reason for it. And these guys have to listen to and watch that. Social media is their life. This is what they do. And they have to read and see these things constantly, and just all the stories that are made up of what people see or think they see." Sides touched on how the digital age has created a new layer of scrutiny for athletes, with social media enabling fans to voice their opinions, often in hurtful and harmful ways, directly to players. "It's just this new world that we're in, and it is just not acceptable when it gets personal for these guys to have to deal with that," she said. The incident has brought into sharp focus the intersection of sports, social media, and racism, and how the increasing visibility of women's sports, like the WNBA, has sometimes been met with backlash from those who cannot separate criticism of play from personal, often racist, attacks. As the WNBA continues to grow its fanbase, the league, its players, and its leadership face the challenge of ensuring that inclusivity and respect remain at the forefront. Alyssa Thomas, DiJonai Carrington, and their teammates have made it clear that while they welcome the support of their fans, they will not tolerate racism or hate. Their voices, amplified by the league's stance, signal a unified front in the ongoing fight against racism in sports, as they call for a future where athletes are judged solely for their performance on the court, not by the color of their skin.